I'd like to call the Finance Committee meeting to begin at March 20th, 2025. Please note that this meeting will be in person and is being recorded. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we're going to start with our esteemed guest. Oh, I guess that's you.
Your only guest.
Could you please come up and introduce yourself?
Hi, Buddy Baker-Smith. I'm the chair of the Community Preservation Committee. And we have a couple of warrant articles. So I just kind of run through those, and then if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Perfect.
We have two project articles. One is for the preservation of gravestone and wall restoration work at the Joseph Davis Cemetery, which is on Fonts Corner Road between, I think it's Bank 5, I think it's the bank, and Lazy Boy. There's a town cemetery there. That's an amount of $50,000. And then we also have a project warrant for the development of bid documents for repairs restoration to the town building that currently houses DCTV on Russell Mills Road. So perhaps I'm going to pause there if there are questions about these two projects.
Terry?
Is the cemetery still active, do you know?
That's a great question.
If you don't, that's fine. I was just
I
curious.
don't know for sure, though there are some newer stones there, but I don't know if there's still room for additional folks.
I didn't even know there was one there, so that's good to know.
Do we know what the repairs and restoration is at the DCTV?
Yeah, there are approximately 200, more than 200 stones at the cemetery, all of which would benefit from cleaning. And there are about another 69 that are damaged, so they may have been they're either pushed, fallen over, or there are some stones that are laying against the wall. So those will be repaired, so set back on their pedestals and things. But pretty much all of the stones will be cleaned.
Like Terry, I didn't know there was a cemetery there. Do we have any idea how far back they go?
Yeah, I think we do have a little bit of that information. It goes back a good deal. Let's see. I will find the years here. Oh, I might have it in his presentation.
My recollection, it was early 1800s, late 1700s. I know they were given
Yeah.
somewhere in that packet.
Oh, yeah, 1791, and the earliest stones are 1792, yeah.
So this would be under historic preservation, right?
Yes, this is a historic preservation use. There's a section of wall that will be repaired and restored. Some trees growing next to it have kind of caused it to kind of bulge and kind of start to fall over. That'll be repaired.
We need to do a show on cemeteries of Dartmouth,
Yeah.
I think.
They should be a
Historic
historical
note to
society
everyone.
would.
We have some local Judy Lund is our kind of
Right.
local expert who's
Yeah.
kind of collected a lot of information, and she will be working with the recreation, town park and recreation on this project. She's providing the kind of the expertise for the project.
Wonderful, thank you.
And then the other is the DCTV, the building that houses DCTV. It's a town-owned building.
And do we know what that entails? Because I hate to say it, it seems low.
Yeah. Well, there will be more to come.
Thank you for that.
So, the CPC in previous years has provided out of its administrative funds some an analysis of the needs of the building, and that has been updated recently. So the scope of work includes the exterior shingles, work on the windows, gutters, repairs to the foundation and the basement, some painting as well, I believe. And so what this phase of the project will do is fund the architect and engineer to prepare bid documents. So there won't be any work actually done. When this is completed, this phase is completed, the town should be prepared to go out to bid. And then I wouldn't, I think we would expect that there would not be surprised to have additional requests for CPA funds to actually do the work. I think the key thing for the CPC, and we reached clarity with Mr. Vitale on, is just that this is a historic preservation project, and so the work that is to be done needs to meet the Department of Interior standards so that it qualifies for CPA funds. We can't do just renovations on a building. It has to be historic or preserving housing. So in this case, it would be preserving the historic features of the building, and anything that helps stabilize the building would be considered part of the historic preservation. So that's why the foundation work is important here as well. And I think, down the road, I think one of the things that was important to the committee is that there be a clear maintenance budget and plan for the building, so that this kind of investment that we anticipate to do the work would be worthwhile and essentially protected by having a good maintenance plan for the building.
Are you suggesting that there's not a maintenance plan now?
It was not so clear what the repairs have been made to the building over its life, but it wasn't clear that there was a specific maintenance plan for the building. And so I think that's where members of the committee made a particular point that we certainly would be looking to see that if it was to come back to us for the construction financing, that we'd want to make sure that that was in place.
And who would be responsible for that? I'm just curious.
The town. I think sort of however the town does its facility management and oversight, the town would figure out that piece, I think.
Oh, sorry. What is exactly in the building now? How big is it? How large of a space is it, if you know?
Great question. I don't know the square footage, but I believe DCTV is the only occupant of the building. So inside, there have been a lot of renovations over the years to set it up for DCTV's use, so studio space, staff space, those kinds of things.
So when you say a plan for future use, would DCTV no longer use it in the future? Is that what you're thinking?
I think basically just that the building will be, there's a good plan for how the building will be maintained in the future. Yeah,
I understand.
yeah.
DCTV is the only
Yeah,
occupant.
now I get it.
Yeah.
Gary, does the maintenance crew that we have take care of DCTV as well?
So we do have as you know, the facilities department now, they're responsible for all town buildings. It being, a town building, if there's repairs needed, but these are beyond, I think, the scope of what, facilities. This would have to be contractors and so on and so forth.
I think just to your question, I think there is
Yeah.
maintenance built into the regular operating
Yes,
budget.
yes.
Yeah, it
Anybody else?
doesn't say that in the budget, so.
Okay, we also, as is typical in the June town meeting, which is kind of the first town meeting for fiscal year '26, we have our administrative budget, and that is a total of $35,000. We're allowed to set aside up to 5% of the projected revenue each year. We have found that we really have never spent all of $35,000, so we have tended to just level our administrative costs at that amount. The $35,000 represents about 3.3% of our projected revenue for fiscal '26. And any funds that we don't use in administration at the end of the year rolls into the unrestricted account for future projects. So we've pretty much leveled our kind of budget to be the same that it's been in the last few years, which covers legal costs, the secretarial assistance, actually all sorts of things that Michelle Vieira does for us, as well as the ability, if we need to hire consultants, help us in doing our work. So that pretty much covers it.
No, buddy, on the article itself, on the 20,190, does that have to be adjusted? Was there not a number
okay,
there?
yeah. Then, yes, and then our final article is we're required to set aside at least 10% of projected revenue, either by committing funds to a project or by setting them aside in a reserve. So our historic preservation, housing, and open space. So we are projecting between CPA surcharge revenue from the town and the state match, about $1,068,000 is a projected revenue that we're looking at for fiscal '26. So basically 10% of that is a little over $100,000. We just rounded it off to $110,000. But because we have commitments that we're moving forward to town on historic preservation projects, we don't need to set aside that much for historic preservation in terms of reserves. So in the end, the reserve commitment for historic preservation and the project commitments will need to exceed 100,000, 106,000 or whatever that is. I do think we made a mathematical error in that 2190. It probably should be 30, just to do the arithmetic. And CPC will take that up at one of our meetings. And probably the best way to do it is just doing a kind of amendment on the floor, just to make that 30, so it rounds out 30,190.
So, buddy, do you have, when is the next meeting for CPC?
We meet once a month, so April, and we have a May meeting.
So we could still make the adjustment to the article because we haven't closed the articles yet. I mean, we're still in draft mode. So instead of doing the an amendment on town meeting floor, we can make the change still. If CPC votes on the.
Right,
Yeah.
Just want to note that I would look
Just
at
let me know and we'll adjust it.
Yeah, I only did the arithmetic after the meetings, which is like, I need to, I should have known to do the arithmetic in the meeting.
Not a problem.
So our historic preservation reserve is quite large because we do set aside every year, and we haven't had too much demand for historic preservation. So that's one of the reasons why we want to not put in more than we really necessarily need, because the reserve is, in excess of, it's almost 700,000. So there's plenty of funds available for historic preservation projects. So we're just being careful not to build that up faster than it needs to be, since it's very sufficiently kind of funded at this point.
Questions, anyone?
Great, those are our articles. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
your work.
For coming out, we appreciate
you.
you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, we're having technical difficulties here with the screen, so the computer. The next item on the agenda, I would say we maybe hold off until the next meeting. The list you have in front of you has been adjusted since. There's been articles removed. So we'll have more of a draft warrant in the next couple of weeks for the committee to review.
So it's been adjusted so much, there's not any we can touch upon?
Well, other than the CPC articles that he just
Okay,
reviewed.
that's fair.
Right now, in the draft form that we have, the budget is done, the enterprise funds are done, and that's all, the DCTV, waterways, water, sewer, trash, so those are all inputted.
That's huge.
Yeah, CIPC, the overhead's been calculated. CIPC is the only thing on the finance side that's missing. So we're still meeting. We have a meeting on the 26th. So that is with DPW. So hopefully that's the end of the meetings with the departments, and then we want to meet one more time to decide what CIPC would be voting on. So I would say next week we would have all the finance articles. We can go over at least the 6 finance articles that we have, and then review if you want to review the CPC articles again, and then we have the other miscellaneous articles that are still waiting. We have met with town council to review the articles, so we're still working on some of the ones that he's still working on, looking at. So
Okay. Gary, will we have, right now, we just have the index of the warrant.
yeah, warrant, yeah, you'll have the substance of the warrant.
So we'll have backup documentation.
Oh, you'll have all the articles next week. Some of that and the index has changed.
You know, just tonight on the CPC articles, I think if people had the backup documentation to those articles tonight, there probably would have been more questions. But we'll have that when we do take a vote.
Yeah, you'll have the warrant article and the wording in the warrant article. We usually invite Buddy in just to review the.
No, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we should have the CIPC wrapped up.
Next week.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So the next item we had on last meeting's agenda for the budgetary topics. I saw the last email that was sent that's been circulated with the topics of discussion. And
I'm going to share the, let me see if I can get on the screen.
Carrie reminded me that we were going to do a priorities list. I didn't think of that until I got her email, so I did mine, and I printed it out. Janine and I, did anybody else sit in on that webinar yesterday?
No, I was working, but I can go back and watch it because I emailed them. Was it good?
Oh, yeah, it was very good, and a little scary.
Oops, careful.
Okay.
Oh.
Gary, is Dartmouth a member of the Mass Municipal?
Association?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so anyone can become a member of the Mass Municipal Association. It's not that Dartmouth is, it's individual members. So, for instance, anybody can join the MMA.
So it's not a town membership?
No, it's
Okay.
when you sign up, you're representing the town of Dartmouth, but anyone can sign up for the MMA. Like the conferences, all the meetings that they have every year. The annual conference is really what is the most expensive, you know, because
Yeah.
it involves driving to Boston
I
and.
don't have to go to that either.
No, I attend it every year.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll attend some of the other meetings that they have throughout the course of the year. But anyone can become a member.
I thought for some reason, I remember when I first joined, Greg said something about being able to access the Finance Committee handbook, which is on their website.
He
That's
gave me a copy.
Yeah. That's on their website. So their data on their website is free. You don't have to be a member to get the information.
Is there a fee for membership?
Yes, I forget how much it is. I think it's $125
So we
a
have
year.
to work out some way to get reimbursed if we.
Well, I mean, it might be good you have one point person as the membership, as the member can share the information with the, instead of everyone having individual memberships.
Is that the only way they offer it, is individual memberships?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually talked to them a couple of years ago.
MMA,
And I talked to the woman who was the director.
Yep.
And and they have a breakdown of finance committees in the state. And I think at that time, of all the towns, they had about 217 finance committees that actually belong. And so you can access it on their website, the various reports. But I don't think, I got the impression, I didn't ask.
Yes. No,
You
keep it-
can't go to their meetings unless you're a member.
You have to be a member. Now keep in mind, the Mass Association of Finance Committees has their own handbooks and things like that. So MMA is a general government website that includes insurance, it's a broader base
Well,
website.
The reason I put it in the list was because I thought there would be some benefit to attending some of the finance, there's, I don't know what you call it, their subgroup of finance committees, so that we could talk to and compare what others, our efforts to what other towns are doing. Because I did notice a couple of years ago, I looked at various sites of towns in Massachusetts and how they reported data, and there was a wide variety of how they did it. But there were some towns, which I can't really remember now, that I thought did a really good job and were members of the
MMA?
Yeah, and what I was hoping, that, you know, if you had a specific group that met with relation to what finance committees do, you could buttonhole some of these people that were producing really good results, I thought, from their websites.
The membership list includes Dartmouth. on
Find
the
out.
Website.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're saying if you're, as an individual.
Individually, you have to join.
pay,
yeah.
so
But
if
but there's data available on the website that's
Right, but it's
readily
limited.
available.
It's limited.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, to be honest, the MMA is a good resource, but the Division of Local Services is, I think, even comparable to MMA. I mean, there's a lot of data on the, I mean, we've looked at it when we put the graphs together for the.
Right, but the problem with, well, I mean, I would like to make a plea for somebody to be able to go up there and, at least for 1 year, we pay the membership or whatever it is, and find out what's available and make a determination of whether or not it's, whether it would be a good idea for us to attend on a regular basis to see if there's benefits we can get from doing that.
Yeah.
Janine, just a-
Yes.
Sorry?
So there was a time, Gary, back when I was on the planning board, the town isn't a member of MMA already, and.
You're saying they're not,
any-
or?
They
Oh,
are.
They are.
And anyone from the town, I believe, can go to the MMA or take advantages of their conferences. The selectmen at one time, I think, had a budget for the annual, for an example, the annual conference up, have you been to the annual
Yes, I go every
conference, MMA? There were a number of times, when the planning board learned of that, there were a number of times planning board members, there was at least 2 or 3 of us that would occasionally go up to the annual meeting. And it was quite informative, because there were a number of topics and workshops being discussed on a 2-day weekend or 3-day weekend.
That they
whatever it
charge for.
was.
They charge for that.
And I found very useful as a planning board member. And I'm assuming they do something like that on the finance side, where there are workshops that would benefit individual members to sign up and say, yeah, I want to attend that workshop. Not only do you gain some knowledge on the specific topic, whatever they may be talking about, but there is an opportunity to network with other communities, because you're sitting in a room who all have interest in finance,
And you may find somebody that you can communicate with and establish a relationship and go back and forth over time. I found it to be very informative and useful. I don't know what the selectmen budget is for that. That's not broken out in their budget, but
So,
I mean, as a select board member, I mean, as a MMA member, you're invited to the MMA conference. Yeah, and then that's an additional charge to go to the MMA
right,
conference.
so I guess what it boils down to, for me, is I think it would be useful to attend at least once. And we have a budget of
think it was 200 I think it's-
$550,000.
Well, that's the reserve fund.
I think we could spare like $125.
Yeah, we wouldn't take it out of the reserve fund.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
not-
that's not what it's
but,
for.
I mean, I think the fee this year was $225 or $275.
Whatever it is.
And that's for like a 3-day conference, so,
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about too, like if they, I know when I spoke to the guy who, I forget, but anyhow, he put me in contact with 5 different finance committees in the towns, I can't really remember. And I talked to them, and they were all willing to speak to me about what they were doing. So I think that's what you were talking about, that sort of thing would be good.
yeah.
But I guess what I'm asking to do is, so if we found out that they, besides the annual meeting or whatever it is, we find out they had subcommittees meetings and you had to go to, I don't know, Wareham or someplace like that, how we would we handle the costs of doing that? And if we found out that to join that subgroup, you had to kick in some money.
yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, one response to that is, and I'm not sure I could go back and look at the history, if the finance committee ever had a budget for membership and dues, and they might have at one time, and maybe that went away, but there is, I mean, every single line item has a placeholder for membership and dues and travel and what, so we'd have to see how many people would want to attend, if it's one person that's a liaison from the MMA, what that cost would be. If in fact you want to attend all 3 days, if you're going to be staying overnight, so we'd have to put all that together. But I think conservatively it would probably be around $1,200 for everything,
Yeah, for one person.
for travel, one person, yeah.
Well, I would like to see, I would like to find out how we do it and then go
Well, I
see.
mean, I mean, as a part of the budget process, you can make a recommendation to do that. You can put that in.
So do you know off the top of your head, do you know what the select board's line item is for,
Well, so for their attendance, this year they invited, I believe, 3 members of the department to the conference. And they all did separate workshops. And there's also a trade show.
When you say they, who went this year?
I believe Chris went, Melanie went, I went. And there were there were a couple others that
So
went
would
too.
we be piggybacking off your membership? Or, not piggybacking, but we'd have to have, it's
You'd
not
have the-
unclear, where does the money?
You'd have the town of Dartmouth membership. That would cost an additional, let's say, $1,200 per person. That money would then come from a line item in the finance committee's budget. We have a budget. It's just that the only thing in the budget is
but
the
my
reserve fund.
point is this, so who paid for you to go this year?
The select board.
The select board, so that's my point. When
So that's
I
their
attended
budget.
years ago, the select board had a budget, and whatever it was, $1,000 for a 3-day weekend,
Came out of their budget.
it came out of their budget,
Yeah.
so that budget still exists, how big, well, obviously something exists, because I don't know how many members of the select board are going, but they're allowing you to go.
Heidi went,
And, and is there enough money to expand it to us? I don't know, and they may not be willing to do that, but can we put in something?
well, I would suggest that to keep it separated, if the finance committee, because each department has its own membership, so if we were to invite somebody from treasury or finance, it would come out of their budget. So what I would suggest, if that's the plan for the finance committee, that we develop a budget there for $1,200 for
When is the annual
Yes.
conference? What time?
January.
So it just
January
happens.
every year.
Do you have any information you could forward to all of us to show what the workshops were from this past
Oh, yeah,
January?
yeah. It's
So I think
actually-
that would be helpful for people to see
Yeah.
and get an idea, oh yeah, if I had known about this back
Yeah.
in January.
It's actually on their website. It's called.
I just went to the web, you could
Oh,
just pull
Connect-
up the website and answer a lot of the
It
questions
was
that
called Connect
everybody's talking
351
about.
this year. It was in a different location. I don't have the.
It's in Hadley. It looks like there's an Association of Town Finance
Yes,
Committees
that's-
regional
that's-
meeting in Hadley.
That's separate
It's-
from,
Right, well, they're having a
Separate,
meeting next
okay.
week.
Yeah.
So these are the kind of things that.
And that might
All
be
the
free of
meetings are
charge.
here on the webs, oh, are they free of charge?
Well, that might be free of charge.
Yeah, on their website. They
But there
have
is an
all-
association of finance
Right,
committees.
so, I mean, I'm still confused. So we have to vote ourselves a budget to do this? And where do we get the money from?
We come from revenues.
From your budget?
No, it would come from revenues. Anything,
That's how-
any increase to the budget is a increase, from the revenues. So if we're gonna put $1,200 in the budget, it would come out of available revenues.
Okay.
What meeting again were you talking about?
So the Mass Municipal Association has an annual conference which is held in January. It's called, this year it was Connect 351, that was the theme. It usually was at the Heinz, they moved it to the Seaport. This is the first year they were at the Seaport. That is a conference of mayors, select board members, finance committee members, treasurers, finance director, I mean, you name it, everybody's
So
there.
it's like a whole town meeting.
There's a trade show, and then there's the conference. In the conference, the DOR will speak, the governor will speak on broad topics,
I see.
transportation, housing. So that's really like broad sense.
Is
These
this-
smaller meetings are niche meetings for like finance committee members,
Right.
counselors,
Workshops.
Yeah.
So
But,
they
I
have
mean, it
the
does not
annual
hurt.
meeting, the governor and all those
It
people
would
will
not
be
hurt
there.
for a member of the finance committee to attend the Mass Municipal Conference. That is something that, I mean, a minimal charge.
Go back out and see.
You'd send one liaison, they could see what they get out of it. There's multiple workshops, though.
Are you suggesting that $1,200 would cover one person's membership and the annual conference?
Yes.
Well, again, there's no fee
Including
for
travel.
membership. We're already a member. The
Well,
town's
it's-
already a
right,
member.
But it's $225 for the conference itself.
No, I get that,
Yeah.
but we're already a member, so there's no fee for.
No, you
the
don't pay
town's
for
already a
registration,
member.
you pay for the registration of the conference.
Right, the registration of the conference and then.
A hotel if you-
Travel expenses if you.
But
if you-
as Kerry pointed out, they have for FinCom in the town of Hadley this year, that next week.
Next week.
They're having that group meet.
Yeah. That's a separate,
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, so-
So that would be, so you'd go from the conference that we're talking about, and then you would go based on your associating with these other towns to the various meetings they have during the year. And that's where, besides the,
I don't,
Right, that has a membership fee, so, right?
yeah, I'm
the,
not
the
sure.
Mass Finance,
The
Finance
trying to
Committee.
Administration of Town
register.
Finance.
I believe it's probably small.
Let me try to
Okay, but that's
register
what I
and
was
I'll tell
asking,
you
if
what
that,
happens.
everything would be
Just,
covered.
Yeah.
so it'd be
This
great
one's
if you
in
had any past email that shows this past conference, what the workshops were.
It's probably online, John.
Yeah, it's right online. If you,
Even the,
Yes,
from last
yeah.
January would still be
Yes,
online?
yeah, it's still there.
Because that's where, I think Brian.
You can see what the
wants us to
workshops
go.
are.
You can
They're
see if it's
valuable.
worth, oh yeah, that
Yeah.
would have been very beneficial for somebody,
I'll tell you,
go
I've
to.
been going for a long time now, and I go for like most of the finance stuff, so you're gonna hear the DOR speak on trends and what they see, you're gonna hear like them talk about housing, the trend of housing, so.
Well,
it's-
I see it as very important to things like, Dartmouth has these issues that are not specific to Dartmouth.
That's right.
Other towns have them, and it would be useful to find out how other towns are handling them, and also to find out what this common cause and common ground, to approach legislators.
The legislators are there too.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but I mean, you're not gonna do that at I mean, you're gonna get some information at the conference, but you're gonna get most of the bang for the buck on these smaller meetings,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
my opinion,
Yeah.
where you can coalesce with other folks and talk about, but you can get together with other people and talk about what their issues are, and then find common ground and figure out how to work on the issues that are similar that are facing Dartmouth.
Yeah, the Association of Finance Committees are the ones that developed the handbook for the Finance Committee
Right.
in Massachusetts.
But all those are, even the handbook, because I got it and I made a mistake, I read it before I joined. It's about this thing. And,
Yeah.
I mean, it was very useful, but the thing that controls how finance committees operate in towns is all different depending on the town charter. And the book, I remember, talked about finance committees having a much stronger role than we do here in Dartmouth, because a lot of the town budgets were finance committee budgets that were given to the town as a result of finance committee putting the budgets together. And they said that the finance committee should act like a House Ways and Means Committee in the Congress. But that's not our responsibility. But I guess my only point is to say that it would be a good sounding board for issues to find out how other towns are handling them.
Yeah,
So what do we need to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you make a recommendation to put, if you want to become if you want to attend conferences or attend workshops in the MMA through the course of fiscal year, you can recommend that you put, I would say, a minimum amount of $1,200 in the finance committee's budget. We'll tell the town accountant to add that in, that for attendance of maybe one person to the
So what
committee.
do we do, vote on it?
So-
And even if you wanted to bring two
Funny,
people,
yeah.
and you're not
But we
staying
can't vote on
overnight,
it.
you can,
We would all
You
have
could
to abstain, no? Because it's for our own group, or how does that work?
no, I mean,
We could vote on it, but I mean, I would suggest, first of
meeting
all, that it
ultimately votes
actually,
on
is that how we
Sorry?
put it in?
Yeah.
Do we put it in as a warrant article?
no.
Or budget line?
A budget line.
A budget line?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, ultimately, town meeting's voting on the budget, so if anybody had a question on why is $1,200 an hour in the budget for finance committee, someone would have to explain, or I would have to explain that
That
the
it's to
benefit
send
is we
somebody to
want to
that
go to
meeting.
meetings, and attend meetings and workshops.
That's just one really meeting, one workshop, like one huge one.
There are two
Which would
regional
benefit the whole
meetings
town.
next week on the
Yeah.
27th that are free.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what I was just, thank you, Terry, that's what I was just saying.
One's in Reading. If somebody wanted to go, you could go and,
There was one in-
Unfortunately, it's the same time as our meeting,
There was
it's
one in
5 to
Marion
7.
a little while back. They're all over. I mean, they try to
Yeah.
regionalize so people can, don't have to
Yeah,
drive
so
to
they can
Timbuk
go.
too.
Right,
but Janine and I attended a webinar yesterday for free, run by MMA, and it was very useful. And they have the, as you said, Carrie, they have the videos available to anybody who wants to watch. It was very good.
yeah, they
So
told
there's
me
a
that I
lot
had
of
to register
resources,
for it
and I
to
agree with
access
you
the
that
video.
Didn't the Division
I
of
haven't
Local
accessed it yet.
Services present it at that?
I'll get the link.
Thanks.
Yeah,
They
they're
haven't
always, the
sent
divisional
it yet.
service is always
Okay.
there.
So
yeah.
how-
So you'll get something out of the conference. What I recommend, if you're gonna do it, through the budget process, maybe when we talk about the final, we're on the draft mode right now, if the committee wants me to add that in, I will add it into the draft, and then the full committee would vote on it. And then it
We
goes to
should
town
at
meeting.
least wait till the full committee is here,
Yeah,
not
I
do it
would.
tonight, obviously, so
Yeah,
Yeah,
push it on to another agenda.
and if you feel like you wanna send two people, one person, the committee can make that decision.
I think we should decide tonight and tell Bobby has to go.
oh, that's a great idea.
That's an idea.
Somebody's not
I'm
getting-
sorry?
Say it again.
Make Bob go.
What was your point? I missed
I
it.
was being fresh.
Oh.
I said, I think we should decide tonight, and we should tell Bob that he's.
He has to go to every
Well,
one.
How the person not in the room becomes
He has to go to the one out.
I mean, it is an official meeting. I mean,
It
it's-
is.
but
Let's be
out of-
respectful.
Yes, out of respect, we can wait. There's no reason to push it through, you know.
We'll surprise them next week.
We'll surprise them next week, and we're gonna vote two people to go, and you're not gonna be one of them.
So we'll make the recommendation at a full committee meeting, but I'll keep it, once you do that, I'll change it in the budget.
Yeah, wow.
So before, okay, that was one item out of 21, by the way. So before we get any further onto the other items, I just sent this out as a draft,
Yeah,
and the form is in alphabetical order, so no, whatever. But since we've spent so much time on, at this point, item 2, which doesn't mean anything at this point, we should have who's responsible for doing the next step, or,
Well,
come on,
The-
this is the form.
yeah, I agree. The next step is to wait till we have a full house, right? A full group of all the FinCom
Yeah.
members. And then have this discussion again and
Yeah.
say, who wants to join? And then say, sorry, should we join? Talk about the money.
Of course, and that's not the next
And
step,
then
but let's do it.
say that,
I think I just want to clarify what Gary said. The town is a member, but that doesn't mean that we can go to every meeting,
Right.
for free. We can only go, you can look at the website, MMA.
Or free
I
someone.
know.
There's the Association for Finance Committees is there. So the meeting next week is the ATFC. And they are holding free regional meetings in Hadley and in Reading. Anybody can go 5 to 7 at night and see if it's useful. And otherwise, I think, so there isn't really a membership that we'd be paying. What Gary was saying, I think earlier, is that if you want to go to a workshop,
Yeah,
it's
it's travel expenses,
Yeah,
and it's,
yeah.
it's.
well, I think that, to my, if there are relevant workshops, that's pretty good
I think
information.
next week's workshop would, like, I'm gonna see if I can.
Yeah, I'm only
do it,
suggesting
'cause it would be-
$1,200. I mean, the committee may decide that they want to go to multiple workshops, may want to send two people.
I think a lot of them are free, I think that
Yeah,
one
some of them are
isn't
free.
expensive, but some of them are free, so,
I just, all I want to do is say that we have the provision that if there's ones that cost money that we think would be useful to include the convention or whatever you call it, that we have money to do it, and we've talked it through, and that we have somebody that would be the nominee to go.
And you've looked at prior
Nominees.
workshops and you've looked at prior conferences that seem
Yeah.
interesting enough to
Right,
go.
or somebody has attended like 5 or 6 of these regional FinCom things, and therefore that would be the person to go.
Yeah.
Can I
Janine,
start
just-
the conversation on tropics?
Yes.
Again, can pick up from
I
me.
think John has a
So
question.
this is my list, and
This is what you passed out?
yep, what I passed out.
Okay.
And when I looked at this list more carefully, in my opinion, there are several items that are really not within our role. And I feel like as part of our conversations about trying to be more effective and sitting in on all the budget meetings, we heard a lot of issues.
Oh, not one.
And I think it is our role to ask questions, but some of these things I can't see us doing. So I wrote those at the bottom. And then I thought it would be helpful, I took this out of the state handbook. It is a list, a checklist of what finance committees should be responsible for, just for your information. I think just the work we're doing, sometimes we go out because we're trying to get something done, but I think it's very important for trust with other committees. We've been accused of overreaching once or twice in our history. It's important for us to be clear on what it is we do and what it is. Yeah.
Can I just bring up a point? Sorry, I didn't mean to shut you
Hold
off.
on, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, may I speak? Oh, do you want to speak?
Oh,
So I just wanted to say, I went through and ranked, in my opinion, the top 5. And the way I looked at it, you know, and I know Terry looked at it different, what is our role. Even the ones that you left, that you thought were, you know, someone could make the argument that that's not finance committee responsibility.
Yeah.
And I look more of our role, and I think I said this last week, that we certainly have lobbying power, that we can lobby the people who are responsible for, not the town managers, but we certainly carry some weight on lobbying. This is a direction we should be going, grant writing is for an example. That's not our role, but I think we carry some weight in saying, you know, there's benefit, there's financial benefit, you know. So when I went down the list, and it's funny how that just happened to float it to the top, I looked at this as what of all these items can we really realistically accomplish and accomplish in the quickest fashion. So for me, joining the MMA or going to MMA was number 1. An easy discussion on pros and cons and a vote. We could have done it in one night.
and it's our
So that's why for me it
responsibility.
floated to the top and say, wow, we can accomplish that
All right, so
in
Right.
one
I
meeting.
I want to agree, because the way I looked at it was immediate, and then report and next steps. So things we could discuss that we all felt were legitimately within our powers, and then things that that needed a minimal bit of information from the town. And then I took the second group, which is get more information from the town, and then have a discussion whether or not we wanted to push forward and have an opinion or influence the outcome. So before we get started on this, I'd like to read from the charter, and I think this is what we have the ability to do or not do. And I think it all revolves around, like, when people interpret what's written in the Constitution. You have strict interpretation, and you have what you think was meant by the words. It's very short. It says, this is in our charter, it's Article 34-4, Powers and Duties of the Finance Committee. The duties of the Finance Committee shall be to investigate all articles or warrants of the annual and special town meeting and have their decision or recommendation or disapproval printed after the article so investigated on said warrant, comma, to investigate, separate thought, to investigate the expenditures of any money by the town officials and notify the select board in writing as to whether or not, in their opinion, the expenditure is or was justified. So, a lot of these things in my opinion, touch on budget. So Terry had written, I guess, morale as not being just what happened, not being our bailiwick to talk about. Well, I would disagree because if we're not hiring people, which is an expenditure, it impacts the quality of service on the town. And it's an expenditure we should be taking. So therefore, we can ask, how come some of these departments don't have employees for the last, have people on their table of organization, but haven't been able to hire anybody?
I feel like you've touched upon two different issues there, Brian.
Well, no.
Well, I mean, there are two different issues on the spreadsheet, for sure.
Oh.
So there's morale, and then there's positions haven't been filled, I don't have.
All right, I just picked one off the top of my head. But I picked one that I wouldn't normally think morale was a big deal. Sorry, not a big deal, but we shouldn't be involved in, except when you think you're paying money, it's an expenditure, people aren't happy, they're not doing the work that they should be doing because they're not happy. Therefore,
Understood.
it's an expenditure issue.
I do believe, though, that the argument could be made that anything can be tracked back to money.
There's nothing
Literally.
wrong with
That's true.
that. What's wrong with
Literally anything.
that? That's fine.
But I
I
think
think-
we're on a gray area there.
Well, I disagree.
I think trying to stay, keep focused, like Terry, I appreciate that you did that and you were looking to make sure that, we're working within our scope. Yeah, so I think this was good.
I mean, I think we can look at this if we want to start going through, before we start figuring
Yeah.
out what's more important is,
Yeah,
whose responsibility is it really? Because,
Well,
and I'll just pick on the one we were picking on, employee morale isn't specifically our responsibility.
it's not.
It may be related to many things, but it's not specifically our responsibility.
disagree.
We can mention it, of
I-
course,
I
but
disagree. It's an expenditure, and you're not getting value for money because people are upset about the working conditions or their perceived working conditions in the
So-
town, and therefore
I
affecting
think John made a very
expenditures.
good point that as far as, like, the bully pulpit, that there are things, like, for example, the harbor master and functions joining the fire department. We have no way to, but, I mean, we sat at those budget meetings where he was talking about that, and he thought it was a good idea, and he thought that it would make his job easier, and therefore we thought that would make the department run. So we could endorse it. If somebody asked for our opinion, we could endorse it. We're just not in an executive position to make something like that happen.
I'm not suggesting that we do. The way I broke this out is, if we agree that it impacts expenditures somehow, and it's within our bailiwick to do that, then what I would suggest we do is, since that his comments were made to a limited number of people, that we ask him to come back in and talk about why it's a good idea. And then, as you say, we could endorse him putting it forward on some level.
I think to get to the point of actually endorsing it, to move it forward, really requires a financial study of how that would.
I agree. That's
impact
why
it. But that's not something that we specifically would do.
Well, we
I
could
think-
ask the town to do it.
I think in the case of, let's use employee morale as an example, I think that's a result of a broader topic. And what is that broader topic? It could be wages, it could be insurance, it could be,
I know.
go down the list, it could be a number of
It could
things.
go anywhere.
Right, and so I
Well,
think that,
yeah.
I
Phil
think
just
that,
said it goes back to money.
yeah, I think that it may be a result of an action or a disaction, but I think that topic is what should be up on the screen,
I agree.
insurance or, employee morale is a result of that maybe, or there are other things. I think to Janine's point, the committee can't control employee morale, it can maybe address the root issue of it, and what is it? What is that root issue? Is it,
But it varies.
yeah,
It says-
right,
And
right.
for the ones that mentioned it to us, it varied. Why?
I mean, this says, investigate the expenditure of any monies by town officials. So that would include, to me, not only expenditure, but lack of expenditure. Or whatever's driving morale.
Janine?
Yes, John.
So, I agree. You could tie everything back to money. If you take it, there's truth to that. To your point, I respectfully disagree that, we should look at, before we look at priority, we should look at responsibilities and what is the responsibility of the FinCom. FinCom manages nothing.
Right.
In town.
Reserve fund.
So when, responsibilities, so as far as responsibilities, going down this list that was generated, the only thing we can say that FinCom is responsible for is there's a thing here for improving communications with town meeting.
Right.
Yeah, we could do that. But other than that, if we take your path, there's nothing.
Well, responsibility
do.
may be the wrong word. I, once again,
No,
just threw out some columns,
right.
but something that's more in our control.
We're not, we don't have control of any of
Right.
this, with the exception possibly of joining the Mass Municipal Association and improving communication at town meetings.
So just hypothetically, grant writing. That's not our responsibility. We don't hire and fire that individual. But being the folks that have some responsibility as expenditures and comment to town meeting, boy, and we heard it from every department, they could use help with grant writing. We should be, as Terry, grab the bully pulpit and, stop pounding our fists to the managers and administration in town. The town should be doing something about grant writing.
I think you're absolutely right on that one,
and,
because there's a
so-
financial argument to be made for why the town could use a grant writer.
Yes.
It may not be, responsibility may not be the right word, but it's certainly something that we could
right.
join together and say.
Suggestions, yeah.
We could say that
Strong
about,
suggestion from the
No, I
finance
think we need
committee.
another word
We could-
besides suggestions. I think we need, the fact that we could write a preamble and say something to the effect that we sat through these budget meetings and we heard there was money on the table that could be had through grants, but because the people in general who have to write these grants, or department heads, have full-time jobs, they, with the best intentions, they can't write the grants. So therefore, there is money left on the table, and therefore, it's a missed opportunity for us to resolve.
Oh, the argument's there, Brian, for sure.
one of the things we learned in the department meetings, and I think you were at it when we were talking to the chief, that think, I don't know how we got on the talk, but the harbor master issue came up, and, the harbor master
He
said
brought it
that.
up.
He said, yeah, I believe, we should be under the umbrella of the police department. And when I heard that, and I'm thinking to myself, is there an opportunity that can save the town some money? And there probably is. It's not up to do the work. But why can't we suggest to the managers and administration in town, listen, we should be looking at, other towns do it, have a Department of Safety. And under that safety umbrella, you got police, you got EMS, and the harbor master. Right now, those are three separate functions with three heads, expenditures that are all repeated in all three departments. There's some, I think, some potential savings. What it is, but if we start talking about it, encourage again, and ask town managers to investigate, hey, there's an opportunity, why don't we look at that? It's not a very difficult process to combine three departments under one umbrella and save the town some money. So those kind of things, I think are worth mentioning, and I think worth presenting to the select board. And I don't think,
How about?
yes, we'll get comments that we're overreaching, and I'm fine with that. You don't want to listen to that, that's fine, but other people will, and might get, hey, at least they're trying to do something. Everybody's talking about this cliff. Man, none of us, including myself, don't have the solution yet. But yet we all know we're coming to a cliff where we're gonna fall off.
Well, you could phrase it as a recommendation for further investigation by the town, to say.
Oh.
to say
Oh, really,
like-
definitely,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah.
I don't disagree with that one either. I think there's some in here, as far as organizations of different departments and things.
Well, but organization,
Not really
Costing money
ours.
if it's not right, and it's an expenditure.
You know, and I agree with you, and that's why we prioritize it.
Right.
You know,
Oh, no,
I'd
no,
look
I'm just
at
saying, not all these
what-
topics. There's
what-
plenty that we
What can have
can
the
push
biggest
forward.
impact and the quickest return, and that's where I focus my
Yeah,
attention.
oh, no, I did
You
the
know,
same thing. I kind of knocked things out
there,
that I
you
just
know,
thought were
You know,
not really
I would love to
ours.
say, you know, the morale issue is something I think needs to be solved. Is that, in my opinion, the most pressing issue, and I agree with Gary, it's bigger. There's a big morale is, you know, benefits and, you know, there's a lot of things that have to do with
You could- you could-
morale. Could we address that overnight or in 1 year or with a quick study? No, but there are other things here that I think the town could accomplish
Oh, I agree.
within a year and have an impact financially.
You could
On the
recommend-
bottom line.
You could recommend that the town investigate low morale in various departments, find the root causes, and put forward a plan to fix it.
And
A
how would we do that?
recommendation.
I was just going to say the same
What?
thing. How do you see that going forward?
It's their problem.
Well-
They're the executives, it's their problem.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. How does the finance committee make that happen? Where,
We recommend, we make a recommendation,
Who
say
do we
this is what should be,
recommend
what?
Who do we
I'll write them, I don't
no,
care.
no, I'm asking you.
What?
I'm asking you, how would something like, how would we accomplish something like that?
Okay, so the way I would suggest doing it is, we write recommendations to whoever is in charge, like that, I don't know, it came off the top of my head about morale. And then every meeting or every quarter, we ask what has been done to fix or to follow up on a recommendation. They can come back and say to us, we don't want to do anything. It's not.
So the "they" that you're
It
referring
has
to
go
must be the
select
town
board. It has
administrator.
to- Well, town administrator and
I'm just-
select board.
Maybe some of these things could be kept as a part of an agenda for a meeting with the new town administrator.
No.
Maybe-
No, I
maybe-
disagree. I think all
Okay.
these things should be put on the table, and when and if we hire a new
Put on the
town
table where?
administrator, fine.
Yeah.
But I don't think we should be cutting any, well,
Well, we're not cutting anything off this list, Brian.
No,
That's
I'm-
not,
I
that's
don't
not my
think we
intent
should
to
be-
cut them off, is to just figure out, is there something that we can do besides just raise it to someone's attention?
May I,
well, there's nothing we can do.
may I, Chair?
Yes.
I think there's too many to attack at once.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we need to
Oh, no,
just.
there's 21 items here.
Yeah,
Well, one we
maybe
already-
focus on a couple, and then as we gain some momentum,
Right,
get
and
the
figure
next
out how to word
couple,
it.
and, yeah.
So let me put the question this way to everyone. What did you each think, aside from Terry, who hasn't on a list, what was your number one item?
Well, can I just say, I
Communication.
broke them, you talked about how you broke them down. I broke them down into immediate, and then
Actually,
put
that's
some
smart.
under there, and then I
Smart.
put report/next steps. In other words, some of these, we don't have enough information other than sitting in a 10-minute meeting with the department head to find out whether it's worth pursuing these things. So the way I felt was, have that department head, ask them to come in and make a further report to substantiate there's enough to make a recommendation to do something on. But the ones I came up with were ones that I thought were immediate. So I think we all
Which
came
are?
up with
What
immediate.
are they?
Oh, okay.
Don't surprise us.
So FinCom joining Mass Municipal Association. That's
Okay, so
immediate.
we,
Okay,
FinCom improving communication with town meeting members.
we're
That's
all on
immediate.
page with that.
all right.
I've heard a spreadsheet adding all long-range planning projects plus operating budgets and estimated annual effect on residential and town taxes that go out for 10 years. You said those exist, that
Yeah.
exists already. State of town presentation, state of town presentation to town meeting, at least to get started on that, because that's something that we spearheaded here, I think, last year or the year before. Status of long-range planning projects, like a $25 million bridge replacement, blah, 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 blah. So to get more detail about those long-range plannings after the 5-year planning horizon. Grant writing. And then the other one was the effect of at least to have discussions about the effect of exponentially rising costs for equipment, vehicles, supplies, parts. and services on departmental budgets to include use of consultants. Now, the reason I included that, besides hearing it from all the department heads, is I was figuring that, and I brought this up a couple of times, and I think maybe if we went to the Mass Mutual Association and found out if other towns had this issue, which they are, is to find out how they're handling it. One of the things that I read about, that some states do, I don't know everybody in Massachusetts, other than the buying thing that the state,
State bid list.
their list, there are some towns in other states that form a buying cooperative. So instead of having us specifically like buying gasoline by ourselves, I'm just making this up as I go along, maybe if 15 or 20 towns got together and decided they would pool the requirements for gasoline, you could get a cheaper price.
Have you seen that in the state, Gary?
Well, I think the reason and the genesis of the state bid list was to do just that. So if you're talking about 20 towns getting a better price, I think 351 communities would negotiate a better price. I mean.
Well, I don't know how it works.
Yeah, it could be a collaborative of smaller communities, but I don't know. I'd have to look at the data to see whether or not the state's getting a better price as compared to a smaller collaborative.
But at least say, okay, we went, so in terms of our requirements under the town charter in terms of expenditures in questioning, at least we could say the best deal is the state list. Or the best deal is not the state list. And therefore, there's this other.
9 times out of 10, it usually is.
I don't know.
I mean, they have every contract in the state copies.
Well,
I mean,
then I'd like to see, if that's the case, I'd like to see vehicles, that should be parts. I mean, so how do you prove that's, I'm not asking you to do it, but how do you,
We'd have to compare it to some other collaborative.
well, that's what I'm asking.
And I don't know who's out there for a collaborative that would deal with truck parts or.
At the very least, you'd make me go away, because I'd be happy.
I mean, if we could find that data.
I'd be happy to say, fine,
Yeah,
you guys are doing the
I
best
wouldn't
you
even
can
know
do.
who the collaboratives would be.
I don't know either. Maybe there aren't any. Maybe there is.
9 times out of 10, the communities will go to the state bid list.
But
Because everything's been vetted,
But I guess what I'm
Procurement and.
asking, that's what I'm asking, is that the best possible way, rhetorical question, is that the best possible buying opportunity? I have no idea.
Yeah, I would say it is, only because they're constantly negotiating with companies and negotiating price. And some instances, you can avoid procurement, and, because everything, if it's on the state bid list, it's been vetted. So there's a cost to that too. We'd have to look at.
No offense, but I'm not convinced.
Yeah, well, we'd have to look at what collaboratives are out there for like utilities, gas,
Well,
parts.
I think we should, in the era of rising costs, that's something we should be looking at. And should at least somebody should come back and say, yeah, we're buying the best we possibly can.
Can I ask a question about 2 of your items?
Yes.
Because I thought it as I was going through this list myself. So to me, the status of long-range planning projects like the bridge.
Yep.
That item, and the spreadsheet adding all long-range planning projects, they seem like the same thing.
They might be, I mean, I
It
made
doesn't
this.
seem like 2 separate things. It seems like one
That's fine,
thing.
what do you, so my question is,
That's all.
what do you got?
We're down to 20.
We've had this analysis, I think, even last year, long-term capital, when we looked at what for instance, a school would cost, the water and sewer treatment plant, what that does to the tax rate, we have that data.
So what I'm asking is, put that up or send it to us, put that up on the board, and then add the operating budgets for each of those years, estimate them with projections, and to say what would be the effect on the tax rate.
Well, those are totally two different scenarios.
Why?
Because if we were to borrow, it would be outside the levy limit.
I'm sorry, say again?
If we were to borrow, it would not be included in the levy limit for a project about $100 million
All right,
for a
so
school.
here's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in what the tax rate is gonna be 10 years out, putting all this stuff together, wherever you're gonna get the money from.
We have that, and we also have it for the enterprise funds.
I'd like to
Because
see it.
remember,
Yeah.
the enterprise funds are based on the rates, not on not on the
That's
tax
fine.
rate.
I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it up on the board, and I'd like to be able to ask questions about it, and then see if I agree with how you did it. I
Yeah, we
know
can
one-
circulate it.
I know one time we talked about, I think you brought up that subject, was they used 2.7% as the inflation factor every year.
Yeah, there was some number that wasn't.
Yeah, and that to me
it
is
wasn't
not a good
obviously,
assumption.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, I'll circulate that presentation.
But I think it's more than circulation. I think you should not only circulate, but we have to have a discussion about it.
One question first. Brian and everybody,
Thank
do we
you.
agree that we can take away one of these items because it really falls under the spreadsheet item?
What?
The status of long-range planning projects? And instead
we
keep
have,
spreadsheet adding all the long, you know what I'm
I
saying?
don't
To me,
think you-
that's one
No,
thing.
I don't think you can take it off till we actually see it in discussion.
I'm not taking
well,
both
we
of
had it
them.
last year. You know,
Yeah.
David and Terry are part of the capital improvement and there's a committee, long-range planning,
Yeah,
correct me if
yeah.
I'm wrong, Terry, that
Right,
you're
it is,
part
yeah,
of.
long-range capital.
So they are looking at it, they did report to us, I think, at some point last year, and maybe ask a report this year, what's the status
Yeah, what's the
of that? But for us to get involved in,
No, I don't want to, I don't want to
The,
get involved in it. I want
right.
to see it.
Right,
And then I want to,
right.
what my ultimate ask is to find out, when you add all that stuff together on an annual basis, going 10 years out, what, no matter what where your funding is coming from.
What does it do to the
What's
tax
the
rate?
effect on the tax rate?
Yeah, we have that.
if you recall, we were, at least the 3 years now, I think I've been here 3.5, what it is, asking for short-term and long-range planning beyond 5 years.
We did.
And we
got
finally
it.
got that.
We
We're
got
making
it.
some progress. So that's a work in process, in progress. That didn't rise to the top of my list because I know there's something being done about it. People are looking at it. Can we benefit from an annual report from them? Sure. But I'm comfortable that now there's at least a group that's taking it serious now and looking at it
All right, so-
and projecting out.
I agree 100% with what you said, but I would like to make it a formal subject of this committee, at least on an annual basis, to review that.
May I for 1 sec? Gary, is it public knowledge? We saw this, we saw the last town meeting. Wasn't there a presentation?
It was a handout.
It was a handout.
They're public meetings also.
Yeah, is it somewhere on the Dartmouth website? Because I'm looking right now to try to find pretty much what he's asking for, because I remember seeing something like this.
No,
I
we haven't
just
posted
can't
anything on the
find it.
website because the committee has not, we vetted the project, so we did it's just like we're doing here, we've ranked the projects. So, right, the next step will be at a meeting coming up, I believe on the 26th, we'll be now looking to how we promote those projects, how do we advertise those projects, either at town meeting, and now market those projects out to the public, whatever that means, if it's a school, if it's the water sewer treatment plant. So until we have that done, we really don't want to, at town meeting, if you remember what we talked about, what is long range, we gave a definition
There
of
was a
what
whole
long range.
presentation, right?
Yeah, well, it was what is long-range capital. It gave people a sense of what exactly it is. At that time, there was no mention of what projects were prioritized or anything. Right now, we're going through that process. And eventually, there will be one project that's put forward, 2 projects that are put forward, so on and so forth.
I would like to see it before it gets set in stone, and I would like to be able to ask questions about it, and before it's presented to town meeting, because that's our job to do that, and give our opinion to town meeting.
Yeah, I can circulate that sheet and,
And unless-
but they are public meetings. I mean, everyone is invited. I think, you've been to a couple of them.
This is where I feel like we could improve, like when we were talking about communication, just circling back to communication,
Yeah.
not just for the finance committee. I think as the town in general, like, when we talk about stuff like that at the town meetings, and, you know, we have these big presentations, you see it there, but we should have it somewhere on our website, on the Town of Dartmouth website, so we can go back and reference it. So when we're wondering, hey, well, didn't I see that? We could go back and get it. I'm having trouble finding anything
Yeah, we didn't do a
on there.
presentation at town meeting. It was only a handout.
There was something.
No, it has not been a presentation for
No?
long-term capital yet.
But remember,
Okay.
I'm not, you know.
There will be, but not
The
yet.
bridge is fine, new roofs, all that is fine. I want to know ultimately what the impact, when you add all that stuff up.
Yeah.
And when and different sources of revenue to finance it, what the impact's going to be,
Yeah,
including the operating budget.
yeah, well, again, the operating budget is totally separate from.
Doesn't matter, it's still impact, to me, I mean, I understand the finance part of it, or the accounting part of it, but it still impacts the tax rate.
Right, well, it would be above and beyond the tax levy, because it's outside the debt limit. So,
Oh, okay, so
but
if
but
it-
it would still would be a commitment for the resident to pay that amount. That's
Exactly
two
right.
different things.
That's-
So we have that impact on what that would be
Right.
20 years out,
I would-
because the
I would
schools would be
like-
financed well into
I
20
would like
years.
that explained.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, on the website would be great.
Should be public knowledge, we should have
Right.
transparency of what we're
'Cause
thinking
it's-
about.
You're not talking about serious money going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I would be cautious to put that on the website yet, because it has not been, we have the
All right.
data, but it hasn't been finalized. Until the committee finalizes what they feel the priority
I-
is, then we would put that information on the
Well,
website.
yeah, but I want access.
But we can supply it to the
I want
committee.
access to it before then. 'Cause
Yeah.
I want to see it beforehand.
Yeah,
To the meeting, Brian.
What?
Come to the meetings.
I have
Are they
been trying to go to these meetings, and I can't find any schedule for them, so.
we
I
we
agree.
post
It's
the
not-
agenda.
Where
And
is
so,
posted?
and so I was going pretty regularly, but then I stopped getting invites, and
It
it was,
hasn't been a meeting. It's not that
well,
you
then
haven't
I
gotten
question,
invites.
well, never
hasn't
mind,
been a
don't get me
meeting.
started.
When do you normally hold them, Terry? Is there a
Yeah.
planned night or day that they have?
During the day, usually during the day,
Right.
In the mornings.
in the mornings.
Particular day of the week? I'm just curious.
It's whenever the
Random.
committee, it's whenever the
Well, one
committee
of
can
the
meet.
first things I do is, if you're gonna make this stuff public, you gotta have it so that people can go, not at 10 o'clock in the morning. No offense.
Or maybe have meetings, like just even, how like we do meeting minutes. Like, I'm on the Long Range Capital Planning Committee, like the page on Dartmouth, and there's really nothing, like, it just shows what the goals of the committee is. It's great, the membership, but there's no more information to say, okay, well, where are we at?
I
Yeah,
think if
it-
that handout, you know that handout that they passed out, if that was included on the town clerk's website where they put all the meeting minutes, that would be helpful. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's, the whole packet is on there, but that's not on there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a work in progress. This is a
No, I
big
get
work in
it. I'm
progress.
not
And-
criticizing.
And not only is it a work in progress, but I think before we attempt to even go to the public, which we can talk about the details of it, we want to, I think the committee's been adamant about, we want to make sure that when we do present to the public, it is the cleanest data that the committee can put out.
I agree 100%, but I do not
think
want
that-
to, I do not want to react to data that's been decided beforehand. I
Yeah.
want to see it as it's being moved along, and I want an opportunity to voice my opinion.
Can the committee present a draft to the finance committee before they go present it to the public? Because I recall the last draft we saw, there were comments from the committee that saw some holes that, hey,
Yeah.
did you think of this? Did you think of that? Did you think of that? And I think it was helpful for the committee, and it might be, again, to run it by us before they go.
Yeah, the goal is to do a presentation at this town meeting, and the findings from the committee. We can also present to the committee prior to that, if we've gotten to that point. I mean, I'm saying conservatively, we'll have something ready for town meeting, but we're still, like I said, we're still in the process of ranking, and then how are we gonna put this out there as marketing to the public,
Understood.
which is very important in the process.
So, did you have another question?
I do. Are those meetings recorded?
No.
No.
So it's minutes that people could see? Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
John, would you like to talk about?
Sure.
Sorry.
So,
I'm all wound up.
you know, I think we're all approaching it a little different, as I
Well, that's
mentioned.
okay.
Yeah.
We gotta
I looked
start
at it
somewhere.
as, I only rated the top five. I think all 21 have some merit. But I looked at, for me, the top five, what can we get the most, what can we get done the quickest, and what can have a big impact. So for me, we already addressed, I already said the FinCom attending the MMA. Number two for me was grant writing. I think that's a no-brainer to, again, lobby the managers, the select board and the town administrators, and present at a joint meeting with them 5 or 10 bullet items on the benefit of hiring a grant writer. To me, it's a no-brainer. You know, we hire a grant writer that only job is to write grants. We pay a grant writer $125,000 a year. they go out and get $1 million grant. They just paid their salaries for 9 years. So to me, it's a no-brainer to reach out to the select board and say, we need to do this. We need to have a dedicated grant writer whose only responsibility is to write grants, and to let the select board know, we as the finance committee would support that 100%. Yeah, where are we gonna get the money, you know, it's in the budget. We'll support that. We'll go with you, co-sponsor an article to town meeting, supporting
Actually,
a
when we
grant writer. I think that's
improve
important,
communications
and
with
it's
town
very
meeting.
achievable. So that was number 2 for me. Number 3 was economic development. Again, lobby the select board. That should be somebody's function in town. It may not have to be a separate person, but I don't know, look at, you know, again, some bulletized, some points, some positive points to the select board, and lobby them. Is this something we should be doing? And obviously, we promote economic development, increases our tax base. Number 4 for me was the town's inability to hire employees. Now, that's a huge problem. I mean, every industry, you know, every municipality, everybody's having that issue. But we do know Dartmouth is a little bit unique because we already know one of the problems we got is our match for employee health is very poor when we're compared to other towns. I think that's something that, again, we have no control over, that, but lobby the powers to be to say, you know, we really need to address this and come up with a way we can convince town meeting to tackle this problem. And of course, it's
Tackle
an
it in what
increase.
way?
It's an increase in taxes, no doubt, but present, I don't have all the answers, the benefits of doing that.
I don't think we're alone with that, though. I think didn't we have this discussion, was it last week or before, where everybody's having this problem, meaning other towns and
Yeah,
communities?
so, just a little bit.
But hold on, that does not make it
No, I'm not
okay.
dismissing it, I'm asking a question.
No, but, yeah, everybody's having the problem as far as hiring, but Dartmouth's behind the 8 ball is, Dartmouth is recognized as being one of the low when it comes to matching on the health premiums.
So on that topic,
So,
I know there's
you know,
been some
we've
work.
heard, you know, I've heard for the years that people aren't accepting jobs when they find out what that is. I'm not gonna leave Falmouth to come over here and take a hit on my health insurance.
So if you remember,
Okay.
last year, we did make adjustments to the health insurance. We now offer 70/30 for employees. But I think it's more than just looking at the expense side of it. We also have to look at, are there groups out there that would charge us a lower rate than what we get right now?
Right, so-
that, there's twofold. I mean, it's not just, you
So
know,
here's what I'd love to be able to see. If we made some kind of recommendation, whatever you want to call it, is that would be something we could bring up every quarter, and the first place to look at it would be, we would ask, what progress has been made? And we would have hoped that in that ensuing previous 3 months, that a plan, as you're suggesting, to investigate the elements of poor morale, and then what could be done, whether it's health insurance, salaries, you know, whatever it might be. One of the aspects of this, is off the top of my head again, would be we would come back and say, okay, these are the elements. And if we needed to get all 16 employees that the Department of Public Works hired, that they've had for like empty slots for years, we'd have to increase health benefits, we'd have to go blah, 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 till we were competitive, so we could hire the missing employees. And then somebody can make a rational decision about what we're willing to do and not willing to do. The issue I have with all this stuff is we talk about it every year, and we never get to not that it's our responsibility, but the town never seems to get to the grips of, here are the issues. If you paid more in health benefits, we could get the employees, but it would mean this kind of hit on the budget, and are we willing to make that kind of hit on the budget to get the employees, to make the expenditures that would give us the services that that we're entitled to under the town charter from the DPW. But, and then if somebody says, no, we're not, then that's it.
Well, we have a list now, Brian. We're not giving it up. I didn't knock anything off.
So that's
Have
number
the list.
4 for me.
Oh, yes.
Number 5 was the formation of a Department of Safety, and that's just a recommendation to the select board on the pros
Well-
of combining 3 departments into one. Is there potential savings there? That could be done very quickly and easily if they agree. When I say easy, you know,
Can I bring up something?
it's achievable if they make it a goal. Unlike, you know, there's 21 items on here, they all have merit. And just having a discussion with the select board, I think one of the things, you know, when you look at, Brian put this together based on his knowledge, being on the finance committee, but also the meetings we've had with department heads that are private, that we've had in Gary. Those were, to me and Gary and others, were very beneficial to attend. We learned so much more about the town and some of the inner workings and some of the issues in town. And a lot of this came from those meetings. Just to be able to pass that knowledge on to the select board that they may not have because they haven't had these intimate meetings
So-
with department heads on budgetary items. I think it's,
We could do a report to the select board.
I think the select board would welcome it, and there's always gonna be the naysayers, you know, the finance committee is overreaching. What's wrong, in my opinion? Passing on knowledge, you know, that we may have that they don't. And it could fall on deaf ears, that's fine. We did a job.
No, I agree.
And they don't want to prioritize, that's fine.
I think that's a great idea, and I like how Terry added, like, put it in a form of like a report, a recommendation report, and then we tie money right into it, because it's tied, as
An expenditure.
Philip said, you can tie money into
So-
anything.
so
I think
the-
if we
So I
write
agree with
why.
what everybody said. The one on that particular issue is, that wound up on the list because we had a discussion with the harbor master about it.
Oh, yeah.
And he was very enthusiastic about it.
Yep.
So I would suggest, and it was in the context of reviewing line item budgets with the finance director. I think the first step would be to ask him to come back in again and talk about why it makes sense.
I
for the
agree,
town.
if the select board agree with taking that, but I'm
don't
willing
think
to
it-
bet that the select board have no idea that the position, it's the position of the harbor master, that he should report to, under the umbrella of the chief of police.
But
I
as,
said last week that it wasn't the position of the harbor master, so that's why I think, what?
what happened?
Bob, did he not? He said that the harbor
did.
masters didn't like the idea. So that's why I
He-
think.
he said he liked it.
We heard him say it.
No, he said it. I was in the meeting.
But
He
I
said
think
it.
that's a task that could make sense if a town administrator met with the chief of police and the harbor master to kind of brainstorm and say, this came up in our budget meetings, what do you think? And kind of go back and forth.
And I think
then
that
if it gets to a point where I'm uncomfortable, so for example, let's look at the hiring piece. We're assuming, and we're probably right, but what if we're not, that health benefits is gonna make the
Yeah.
difference? I think that we
That
would
we
have
don't
to
know.
look at what has already happened, maybe how many open positions were there last year when we had 60-40, or whatever it was, and then this year we've got 70-30, how many do we have now? Then we can say, yeah, that was the issue. That made a difference, and say that. That would be more of an endorsement than anything, though. It's not a request for change, because it's kind of already happening.
Well, no, it's not already happening, because over the years, for the last 5 years, DPW hasn't been able to fill jobs.
Brian, what's already happening is the change in the health.
I know that, but it's
Oh.
still not accelerating the number of people, or there's still plenty of jobs they can't fill.
That's the question, that's what we'd have to
So
look
that,
you know,
at.
but that's
so-
my point.
Right, so, you know, a piece of this too is, as you know, we're gonna be having a class and comp study that's done. And that's gonna kind of put us maybe in line, or where we need to be in line, or where we are amongst other communities. So, a lot of this, or some of this, may be answered with that analysis, which will be completed in October.
But I just heard somebody say it was none of our business to be involved in that comp study. Didn't somebody say that?
What was the last time it was done?
2018.
So
Oh, so we're due.
it didn't, 2018, there was a readjustment, and it solved nothing. It solved very little, because we still have the problem, you know?
They didn't
So there
have-
was,
That's the job
So
classification
what
study.
I would ask this time around is how does, specifically, you don't have to have an answer now, how will the comp study resolve this problem for DPW and whoever else can't hire people for whatever reasons? So I think, I mean, the first step is, why won't people work? Get a listing of it.
I think, and I forget who's, maybe it was the DPW that said this, that there was, it was because there weren't job descriptions. That was part of the problem, not the
On the
only.
first study, there wasn't. This one there is.
So, but,
There will be.
but that's what added to some of this
Yeah,
problem.
there will be. I think another thing too to keep in mind is when you compare openings in, let's say, a town our size, $103 million budget, what does that look like in other communities with the same budget? Do they have 12 openings?
I don't
Do they
think it
have
matters.
30
frankly.
openings?
I don't think it matters. It's our problem.
No, I know, but in some sense, I think it does, because the ability for that community to pay is a result of their budget. I mean,
Right.
if they don't have the dollars, again, they can't
So
pay.
my answer to that is, if those people are needed to get quality town services, whatever that means that we're not getting quality town services, and therefore, to get the services, you have to spend more money to solve the problem. I'm all about spending more money if you can get the data to prove that it's going to solve a problem. I'm not here trying to cut costs. I'm trying to get the services correct for the town. If that means an increase in the budget, that's fine.
I don't think, once again, but I don't think we heard from anybody that said they weren't able to perform the services.
Well, because
And there was no way that they could prove that it was inadequate.
all right, well, I wasn't smart enough to answer the
And
question.
you're talking about a police department that was down 14
No.
people.
Well, he said he couldn't provide the services.
No, but he didn't have any way to say specifically that, and I'll just randomly pick something, crimes were rampant, or, you know what I'm
No,
saying?
well, let's go back to DPW. They have to hire, I would like to know, like, all the aspects of that. They have to hire outside people to do the plows during the winter. So that costs money. And
Well, in that instance, we were competing with the state. The state came in
Well,
after COVID and said, we're gonna pay $100 an hour.
I don't really care.
So people came
I don't
from,
really
people came
care.
from Dartmouth and then went to the state.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but that's all part of the equation, that somebody has to decide whether it's worthwhile increasing the budget to be competitive with the state, and if it isn't, it isn't.
Hear from Phil and
Yeah,
Carrie
thank you.
on
Sorry.
what you're talking
Carrie.
about.
Yes.
Let me bring it back up. My brain has already moved
Or
on.
Phil
I might have
first. Who's
even.
first?
I'll go first.
You go first, you're ready.
All right. First one, number 19, Finance Committee improving communications with town meeting members. Now, I read number 19, and I read a whole bunch of the other numbers, all the things. And my first pick rolled number 10, the rising costs of equipment, vehicles and supplies and so forth. The inability to hire employees, employee morale, status of the long-range planning objects. Wish I could talk. Spreadsheet adding all long-range planning. State of the town presentation for town meeting. And who has the responsibility in the town for implementing the master plan? I don't think anybody at town meeting is really gonna have an answer for any of that,
Of course, it's true.
okay? The second one, which is actually the 9th one, but, economic development. It's the only alternative to increasing the tax levy. Very difficult, because businesses see Dartmouth as a viable location, but, and I don't know if this happens now, but it used to, the company would want to come in and they would want a sweetheart deal for tax relief for the first number of years that they were here.
I don't think we do that anymore.
TIF, I think that was,
We did.
TIF.
I think,
Yeah, but we don't-
tax
we don't
increment
do it
financing. I think there were companies in back in the day that came
Yeah,
in.
that was a
they
while
offered
ago.
to, but they haven't done that in a long time.
I'm sorry, so you were suggesting yes, you like that, or no? I'm sorry, where were you going with that?
Economic development, not giving the companies money to come here.
Okay, that's what I was
But
asking.
I know back in the day, that's what they did,
Correct.
to get some of the companies that are here now, to get them to move to Dartmouth. Number 3, joining the MMA. Number 4, plan for handling refuse. When the landfill's full, what are we gonna do with the garbage?
Truth?
People in town probably don't know that that's an issue. And number 5 is grant writing.
Okay.
We could
What?
really use a grant
Can
writer.
I make a suggestion? Why don't we go back and, not now, but go back and pick the top 5?
I
And then
think
come
there-
in-
We will. Can we let Carrie speak, though?
No,
Sorry.
If Phil is done.
sorry.
Also,
So, my number 1 is improving communication for town meeting members. And that's for us in Finance Committee and also really to extend it out to the whole town. Like, the better the communication, the more informed our people are. So that's my number 1. Number 2, and I would probably change it now that I've heard from Terry, the role of HR director, I only put that as number 2 because it's here and now, like it's happening, it's being developed right now. And I would tie that in by saying, this is a perfect time to consider combining this role with the school department. And that's a cost saving, so that's how I'm gonna tie that into money. While it would be wonderful for the school department to have their own HR role, I think the money for the school department could be used more wisely and to conserve teacher positions. This rolls right into the next thing of, that rolls right into employee morale. I know at the school level, employee morale is down because they keep hearing every single year that more people are getting cut. So, that kind of ties right in with that. They all work together. But number 3 was the effect of exponentially rising costs for equipment, vehicles, supplies, parts. This really is 3rd on my list because it's the main reason that we're going to end up needing an override. Like the rising costs of everything, not even just equipment, vehicles. I know that's what Brian wrote, but when we just it's the rising cost of living of everything. So that's 3rd on my list because that's why we're going to need an override because our checks and balances aren't checking out anymore. We're going to start dishing out more than we're taking in, and that's going to be an issue. Number 4 was actually morale. I know I tied that into 2 a little bit, but I do think that the cost of orienting new staff is an issue. Like if we keep losing staff within the town, every time you take someone in, they're on an orientation, and then if they get a little bit of experience and they move on to another town that's gonna pay more or to another job that's gonna pay more. So I do think that that's something that we should talk about more and think about ways that, or put the pressure on to the town to think more about how are we gonna retain up the people we have. Because I know teachers, I don't know how it is for the rest of the, I don't know what it's like at the DPW and all of our different departments, but I know that morale is low, and when morale is low, people jump ship, they start looking, and in this economy, they're probably gonna find it, to be honest. I mean, there's always better jobs out there right now, so we have to look at how we can retain our staff and to make people happy and wanna stay. Number 5, as everybody else has said, planning for refuse. It's a big problem, and it's going to be really costly to remove our garbage and do in recycling. So that's something that we probably need to begin planning and talking about that now. What are our options? I don't even know what our options are. I'm sure Gary probably has some answers for that. And 6 and 7 we've already talked about. 6 was the spreadsheet, which we've talked about that at length, and 7th is the joining the MMA, but we've already talked about that, and that one's simple, so I think we're gonna actually be able to fix that one quick. Those are my list.
What nobody mentioned, because I know Brian added it later, was the town use of consultants.
And that's from the point of view
Yeah.
of, maybe we need employees that would be cheaper rather than
Yeah.
seeing all the consultants we use. And I also put in legal counsel too.
Well, nobody
Yeah.
mentioned it because it didn't, we were prioritizing the top 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I didn't know if anybody.
No, I saw it.
Even
I'm assuming
Brian
the
did.
others-
Well,
Just
I-
to put it
I-
on top
Just
five.
Well, again, we can only, if we're just gonna pick the top 5,
Just to clarify.
No,
mean,
I get that.
The reason I get so worked up about
You
this,
can be worked up, it's okay.
it's because I've been talking about it for 5 years. I mean, it's just
I'm
like.
aware, I've been here for 5 years.
And it's just like, how much can you take? Seriously.
No, we have a list now, list isn't going
Okay.
away, it's just a matter of moving it forward in some manner, which I can see is going to be interesting.
Yes. And I 100% agree that according to our charter, we have no direct control over any of this, except that we have the ability to question
We do,
expenditures and also theoretically, not theoretically, why things aren't being expended.
and I
as well.
think some of this could possibly be in the letter that we write to town meeting.
I think a lot of
Yeah.
it should be in the letter.
Probably not all 21,
That's a very,
some.
that's,
Some of it.
some of it can be tied
I
into
agree.
it.
yes.
Yeah,
I think
good
that's a way
idea.
to think, because it's something that, we
That
want to
meeting
know what
members-
we do, well, this is one thing.
And the meeting members read that.
Correct.
The town meeting members
Yeah, no,
definitely
they
read that.
do, absolutely.
And I would love, as a result of having more communication, I would love to see 1 or 2 people in the audience that would come and offer a completely different perspective.
They can't speak when they're here, though,
Yeah,
can they?
they can, yeah.
Is it open
Yeah.
for people to
They can
speak?
speak. If you allow people to come in and speak.
If they're on the agenda.
Yeah.
Well, we
They
could put,
have
we
to
could.
be on the agenda.
Can't we just put?
Unless they have a
an
sign
item
that they're
says-
holding up.
Well, they could just put something, allow something.
And they cannot be randomly on the agenda, as in one person gets to present their thoughts.
Like some other,
It has to be.
like happened
it
one
has
other
to be
time
a
that I can
public-
think of?
It has to be, like the school committee does it, for lack of a better way, that there's 10 minutes, I think they do, that 10 minutes allow people to come up and
Right,
speak.
so we can do that.
We could, everybody has to agree on it.
Oh, well,
yeah, the chair would
see you out in the
have to
parking lot if you
approve
disagree.
that also.
All right,
All right.
so, I mean, one common thing that I heard, and I'm not suggesting that it's number one, but certainly the improving communication with town meetings seemed to be in a lot of people's top list, am I right?
Yeah. Yeah,
You are right.
number 1.
And I think, just to carry it one step further, Kerry had a really good idea. I know that there's a list exists from the town clerk of town meeting members. I don't know how complete it is. But when I originally suggested this, I said that we should consider sending out an attachments to an email, which was our minutes. But I think Kerry's idea of saying, here are the 5 things we talked about in the email, and here's a link to the meeting minutes. And that would be it. If you want to read it, read it. If you don't want to read it, don't read it.
So may I make a comment?
Yes.
The list of town meeting members is available to us. I could have it by tomorrow if you wanted. I already spoke to the town clerk. But, and whether or not it's complete varies, because of course, she can't force
Right,
town
right.
meeting members
Right.
to give
Well,
up.
we
their
also-
time. May I finish?
Yes.
Thank you. But when you think about it, who's going to send it? Where does that come from? You have to think about it from a technical standpoint.
understand.
Who does that come from? None of us has a
who does it?
town, wait,
Well-
none of us have a town web address, whatever, for ourselves, so it can't necessarily come from us. The town clerk is not going to do it, it's not her responsibility, and she does not use the list. She, gives it to people, but she does not send out information that way, because legally she has to send out paperwork, so she does. And we should never send out attachments.
It could be a job that somebody volunteers for, like the liaison responsibility.
Correct, except, okay, you want to make sure that you're not having a two-way conversation, because people might write back to you.
You can put a note and say,
You can put a note, but I'm just saying you
And then you
can't
ignore them.
answer, right, people,
Doesn't
yeah.
matter.
Doesn't matter, ignore
People
them.
can hit reply and
Right, they're gonna send it anyhow.
But you might even be able to set it up so that they can't reply.
That's what I was
Yeah.
just wondering,
There might be a way
Terry.
to do
But
that.
there's some technical stuff to it. It's not, sending an email is nothing. We can all send an email, but, to send one from our accounts is not right. They need to see it come from an
Well, we've
official
been
source.
We've been asking for the town to give us an email address.
This
for a
circles
long
right back
time.
to why we need,
We looked at that, and
I think it's a good idea.
$60 a month per
So
member.
what?
We could also include the,
That'd be 500 some dollars, whatever it
That's
is.
fine with me, 550 grand.
yeah. Yeah, that would definitely check a box on communication.
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
And I'll be
What was
glad
that,
to
Terry?
compile it and send it.
What was the recommendation?
The recommendation was to send an email to town meeting members and include in it 5 bullets, this is what we talked about, and a link to the meeting.
To the link to
If they
the,
want to go to that,
The
they
minutes.
can, and if they want to read the minutes, they can do that. But we would need to create an email address just for that task. It couldn't come from one of us, because it
from
would get
personal.
confusing over the years. So we'd have to have an email like,
We'd have to have a generic,
Like finance committee
Yeah,
or
you
something.
could just do one email,
clerk or something.
and then you could have a little clause at the bottom that this email address is not monitored or whatever like
Right,
that.
we don't
No, we
answer.
will not respond, we will, right,
ask
exactly.
somebody
Any
to
questions?
do it so that they can't, I get
Right.
emails that you can't respond to, and when you
Yeah.
respond to them, you get a message
Reply
back.
to not-
Yeah, an automatic reply. This is a great idea. And we can say if you have any questions or concerns, contact Gary.
Or come to the next meeting.
Come to the
next
meeting. Oh, yeah. These are good
Yeah, Bring your
ideas.
friends, come to the
But we
next
can
meeting.
check that off, because we did it, good job.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we did it, we solved that problem.
yeah. Look at
Can I be
us
the
when we
clerk?
like,
Can I be the clerk?
Madam Chair, can I make
Yes,
a
please.
suggestion? I agree. The communications didn't rise to in my top 5, but it is, and we just, I think it's a goal that we all have in common, and that we could easily, not easily, that we can strive to improve. So there's 2, the MMA and communications, there's 2 we can take off the table right now that we can all agree on.
Well, I'm
Let's
keeping
move
them
in
on the
that
list,
Well,
so
we
you
have to
keep
get 'em-
track
we
of
have to
them.
get 'em fixed.
Exactly, but we have a joint meeting coming up with the select board. Is there a date yet?
I'm looking at probably the second week in April. I'm gonna run it by the
So,
chair.
right.
I'm gonna be out of town, I would really like to attend that, I won't be back till April 7th.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna be.
Second week of April.
I'll be back April 7th, but, yeah, I guess
Yep.
that's, sometime.
It's, I'm out of town on the 3rd week of the end. But
Because the
anyway,
reorganization will be
On
April 7th, so.
on their time or ours? Meaning, would it be a Monday night meeting or a Thursday
I'll have to
night
get
meeting?
I'll have to get the details from the
Okay.
And
chair.
I would like an agenda, what they wanna talk about.
Yeah,
So-
we talked
Before,
about that.
like way before.
so knowing that that's coming up, I recommend that this committee set a goal that we prioritize 4 or 5 items that
Yep.
we can put forth at that meeting with others.
Yep.
Start having a dialogue and a suggestion, because I think they would welcome the support of an example as a grant writer, as one. Saying, if you move ahead with this, we're all on board. We'll co-sponsor with you on doing something like that. So I would like this committee to make a goal of come up with 5 that we could forward to the select board and have a discussion at our next meeting with them.
Yeah, I think
And come up with 5 bullets for each one, and
I think as far as an
Like-
agenda,
like you did.
I think as far as an agenda, I think it'll have to be, I would say that it's not just it would have to be a mutual agenda. We'd have to, this committee would have to say, what are
Right,
the
what we
topics?
wanna
Right,
talk
what
about.
what are the topics? of it?
we want to hear what they want to talk
I
about.
think we could approach
Yeah.
it the way Kerry did, is, sorry, I like Kerry, is take the 5 and put like maybe 4 or 5 sentences underneath it.
why we,
What, when, where, why,
yeah, like,
how much.
why we support this, why we feel that this is important, and how it would,
You're the chair.
how it would affect the budget.
Excuse me, yes, Terry?
Did you do your top 5?
I did not.
Oh,
I could do it.
yeah, thank you, Terry.
I'll let Brian speak for me.
Okay, good. You're looking at each other.
I'm joking.
He's been doing it all night, he's been speaking for you.
I know, he's on a roll.
As you can tell,
That's okay. I know Brian's
I feel
very
strongly
passionate
about
about
this.
the things that he believes in. That's
And
fine.
that's great.
We like that sort of enthusiasm, don't we?
I feel like I just got dumped on.
Column 5?
I would say I have 5, but I don't really have them in an order, so, because I kind of pulled out 5. So certainly it was communication with the town, absolutely. That was one of them. Grant writing was up there as well. Economic development, and state of the town presentation for town meeting, because I looked at things that we could do and that they were on the near horizon. Grant writing is not necessarily on the near horizon, but I think it's very important. That was 4. Oh, the spreadsheet.
Of the projects and
Correct.
operating budget.
Barry asked
With
what
the-
the last column is, Janine.
Column 5.
Yeah, it's just, I just put columns in because I wasn't sure how to, whatever. I just came up with ideas, but they're open for
We could
suggestions of something
edit it.
better. I just randomly threw in some notes as we were talking. So I certainly think we should mention, that we want to be part of the Association of Town Finance Committee, MMA, whatever it's called, and that we are improving the communication with town meeting members as part of our conversation with the select board, because that's
Yeah.
important for us. Now, what the other 3 are,
Well, I had also added one too, because we were talking last week about memorializing kind of how we operate, because we operate so differently than when I started, for sure. And I wondered what people thought about doing a handbook. Just the handbook from the state is 178 pages. But
Yes,
I was
yes, it is.
thinking about a handbook just for this finance committee that's like maybe 4 pages that says how we choose the chairperson, vice chair, what roles, the thing about liaisons, that kind of thing, just to have it written down.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
is that,
I agree.
not- and I'm not suggesting we all go read the 178 pages again, I have certainly scanned it, but is that not part of that in some manner?
It's
No.
not specific to Dartmouth, so it would
Okay.
be things like, we reorganized in April, which we haven't really, but, the liaison's responsibilities are to blah, blah, blah. We write to the town meeting twice a year. We say, these are the components of the
yeah,
first
okay.
report,
Yeah.
these are the components of the
Yep, yep,
second
good
report.
idea.
So nothing that would repeat, it wouldn't repeat that handbook, because it's not a statewide thing, it's more of a local practice.
Aren't there bylaws that like kind of map it out? Because like when I was on a PTO, we updated bylaws and our bylaws like really
We don't
mapped
have-
out.
we don't have
There's
bylaws.
nothing like that, huh?
We have
figure.
financial policies that we
Okay.
voted on for years, but we don't have, that's what I
Okay.
mean. I think it
Yeah.
would be helpful to have a handbook, and I'd be
Super
willing to
helpful.
put a draft together and bring it here for you to review, or we could form a committee to work on it.
I put it down as item 22.
So,
That's good.
Janine?
Not
Yes,
in order,
John.
but this item 22.
Yeah.
in the interest of, it's getting close to 7 o'clock and it's,
Correct,
you know,
yes.
So one common theme, the 2 we've knocked off. I think we all agree on communications and MMA. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think everybody had in their list grant writing and economic development, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Am I thought that was a common thread.
Well, the only
I do
thing,
believe,
the only
yes.
thing, I agree with that, but I had the precursor to putting on the list, economic development, would be to find out what the town's done in the, or is that part of the same thing? I was gonna say.
Yeah, but we can get into
Find out what it's
details
done
and
in the
bullet there,
past.
but I'm just trying to put
Well,
together
okay,
a
you
list
want-
that we can
okay,
all
I get
agree
it,
on
I
and
get it,
not
yeah, I
now
agree.
get
It's
into
for
the
the agenda
details.
Yeah, I
for our
agree.
meeting.
I think, from my recollection, I don't think anybody would have a problem putting grant writing and
grant
economic
writing's in there.
development on the list to the select board right now.
So 3 and
So,
4?
Oh, yeah.
So economic.
After
development.
that, I think we were all over the place
it's
on
random.
what the next, that's my recollection, that I think those 2 really floated to the top. I think everything else.
Economic development, grant writing.
Economic
Yes.
development, grant writing.
How about plan for refuse?
Refuse.
Refuse. Sorry.
Well, I didn't comment on that, but you want to get down to, there's a whole New Bedford regional, which we have a member or 2 on, that sit
Okay.
at,
and they're looking at that issue. You know,
Okay.
they're looking at expanded Crapo Hill. There's still a limited amount of time, even with the expansion, but they're very much aware.
Okay.
And so it's not like nobody's looking at it, just what could be improved on, and I haven't seen it in a while, and I don't watch every select board meeting, but they were having their representative come in once a year and talk about what's going on over there. I haven't
Yeah, they
seen-
most recently came in, I think it was in the fall.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything
gave a,
on what the status is of what's going on over there.
They gave the
So that's
status
an
of
issue
it.
that didn't rise to the top, only because I know there are people and experts, look, it's an important issue, it needs to be addressed, but somebody's looking at that, and someone has that,
At the last meeting, he talked about trying to get approval for another cell.
Right.
And/or putting some information together on what would be the cost to
Extend the
ship it
life.
out.
And they're doing other things like compacting now and
Okay.
different technology that they're using.
I think once a year isn't enough for something like that. I think how it directly impacts the town is very important, not a random general thing of Bristol County and New Bedford. I think we have to really get into things like, okay, so if whatever they're planning doesn't work, what does that mean for the town? And so, because one of the things that we do all the time in this town, as far as I can figure out, is we react.
Yep, you
We're
want to
not
be proactive.
The question on the table right now, though, is what's
What's
item
the
number
other
5?
three?
Okay,
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Right, yeah.
I agree.
To have
Thank you
on
for
the
the
select board
redirection.
agenda.
Yes.
Well, I know
No,
how this could go, and we have about 10 minutes.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that
So-
it may be a little bit premature to talk, you have 3 members that are not here. that
Correct.
haven't weighed in.
Well, we
You
could,
wanna leave
Well, we
those
could, we could
three?
actually, we could vote now.
to that point, Gary, you know, how often do we have a full membership? Just because 3 of us can't attend, you know, business shouldn't stop. You know, you know, it's nice to get everybody's input, but we gotta move forward. We can't wait
No, we
forever
can't
for,
keep stopping.
you know, the April meeting, you know, Brian's gonna be traveling, I'm gonna be traveling at the end of the month. As much as I wanna be at the select board meeting, I think it's very important that we're all there with me. You know, we all have lives. And you know, I'm not gonna tell this committee, hey, don't meet without me, because I'm, you know, I'm traveling. It's not fair to the committee. So, we have a quorum,
we still need item number 5.
right? Okay.
All right.
Thoughts? Anybody? Just trying to think what else we talked about. A lot of people made
Was it
mention
the harbor
of the
master?
spreadsheet or the
the
status of
spreadsheet.
long-range projects.
I think, I would love to see, maybe it's number 5, because it's a easy thing to do, I think, I heard, is the effect of all the projects, including the operating budget going out 10 years on the tax,
Yeah, that
on
one,
the tax
spreadsheet,
rate.
the spreadsheet one.
The spreadsheet. Did we already include that?
No, but
I'm
she just-
saying
she
as
just
for
said
number
it.
Oh,
5.
okay, all right.
It's okay. Brian doesn't listen to me. How does everybody feel about that?
Yeah, yeah, I would agree.
I mean, these are just discussion points
Right.
for
Yeah.
our meeting with the select board. This is not, we're not solving it, we're just
What's
These are
the-
things that we,
What's the suggestion on 5? I'm sorry, Janine.
spreadsheet adding all long-range planning projects plus operating and the estimated annual effect on residential and business tax rates for 10 years.
We don't need that for the select board. That's
No, we
nothing-
don't
that-
need
That's
it,
something
but
we
it's-
could do,
Okay.
you know, on
our
our
Gary says he
own. I
has
think
the-
that's an easy
Then
knock-off
what about
for
the
me.
harbor master thing that keeps coming
oh,
up?
yeah.
How about the master?
Or the master
The
plan?
master
Master
plan,
plan
that's
would be
something
good.
that could be a discussion, I agree.
Yeah,
Well, I have an opinion on that if people want to hear. You know,
Okay.
that's, you know, we want to look at, you know, roles and responsibilities. The finance committee has no control that, we never will. The master plan gets pushed on the town every 10 years or so. And this is just my opinion, one opinion only, for grants. If the town wants to apply for grants with the state, most grants are saying, does the town have a master plan? So, every 10 years, the town spends money on a master plan, they put a budget, and I've been part of that. I've sat on 2 master plan committees in the past, and, you know, we say, you know, we don't want this to sit on a shelf, we don't want this to sit on a shelf, we always have that, yeah, and what happened, it sits on the shelf, and I'll tell you why. The only people responsible for the master plan is 5 elected officials on the planning board, which I was part of for 27 years.
So in order to implement something that on the master plan, it has to come from a citizen's petition, or the planning board has to sponsor an article to town meeting.
Yeah, it's complicated.
That's the only way. We can bang our feet to the select board and everybody else, we want, who's gonna implement the master plan? It's the planning board, or we specifically tackle an issue and sponsor a citizen petitions to town meeting. But for the people responsible for the master plan is the planning board. The problem is with that, again, they're 5 separate elected officials. And when I sat there, I'm very proud of some of the things I was able to accomplish, but I had to accomplish, at least lobby 2 other people to come with me and saying, this is important, we need to do this. And then lobby town meeting and get 2/3 of town meeting to a very big threshold to get through town meeting at
Yeah.
2/3. And people get elected to the planning board all the time, and everybody's got different priorities. Look at us. The difficult time, and I did this on the planning board, every year we'd come up with a priority list. And many of them went on the master plan.
We're
Master
always
plan
gonna
was
have
developed by
different
some planning board members and residents of the town, and the consultant just heard from this person, some things rise, and then it sits on the shelf because the planning board's not interested in accomplishing that, or it's not high on their priority list. So for us to tackle that, I think it's a waste of time on.
How about if we ask about the rising costs?
Cost would be good.
What was the
The
rising
effect
cost?
of exponentially rising costs for equipment, vehicles, supplies, parts, and services on departmental budgets to include use of consultants. It's odd wording, but, yes, sorry, Brian, it is a little odd.
I wrote it very quickly.
You did.
But that's certainly a discussion on finances and how we go forward when everything keeps going up.
So that would lead us, that's going to lead us right into, basically talking about an override. So I would support that discussion.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, but
Everybody-
I don't think it should just be used as a base for saying there should be an override. It should be,
No.
what are we gonna do about it?
But it's the introduction of
Right.
it. What are we going to do about
What
it?
are we gonna do about it? One thing, the immediate reaction
Right.
is an override.
Right.
While we study other things to do about it, then
Right.
that's fine with me.
Anybody
Maybe
have
there's an
any,
alternative, I don't know.
Phil, thoughts? Terry, other thoughts?
On the effect of rising costs of recruit, what are we paying department heads for? These salaries, and putting together budgets and the effect of vehicle costs, and, it's up to them to be looking at, where can we save money? Do I look for a different vendor?
So
Do I
what do
look
you
at-
suggest should be our 5th point?
I'm thinking of
Good redirection.
The harbor master, the safety
Nice.
department. And only because I think there's an opportunity of some real savings, and something that just purely discussing it and inquiring with these 3 department heads could easily be pulled in. The select board could pull them in, what do you think of this idea? Is this a direction we could be moving in? And they could probably do it within a year if everybody, 3 departments agree,
Well, I'm
yes,
not
it's a good
opposed. I
idea.
guess the question
Well, I
is,
guess
how do
I'm-
others feel?
My question on that would be, I heard it as in that meeting, as something, I wasn't sure how committed he was to it. So before we would do something like that, I'd like to have him back in here to say, do you really think this is a good idea? And, because the last thing I want to have to do is bring it up, and then he says,
Then he
I'm not interested.
That would be
Well,
more respectful.
I don't think he'll say, no, I didn't say that.
No, I didn't, no.
Correct, but he's
So-
right in saying that we're not just pushing it through without a
Because I
another
heard somebody say
conversation.
he
Yep.
retracted his interest.
I just think that there's been enough, behind the scenes tensions that are different than what we have heard directly. And I would feel more comfortable if Gary met with Brian and Steve to have an informal conversation. And then if it makes sense to those 2 to move forward, let's go through the process. But
Could
why
you
bring it
include
up?
EMS with that?
The problem with select board meetings
We
sometimes.
have a whole budget of emergency
EMA,
management.
EMA.
EMA,
Yeah.
emergency man, those folks, why aren't they in the umbrella of a safety department? Why do we have a separate budget and a separate, hierarchy? You've got 3 hierarchies, let's just have one.
I agree 100%. I'm just
and-
talking about process that.
Yeah,
we
no,
have
but
to-
I think that should be included in that discussion with those
That
guys.
people think
Yeah,
it's a
because
good
they-
idea or they don't, and then we go further. Not that we wouldn't
Yeah,
recommend
'cause-
it anyway, but it would still.
Yep, no, I
control
agree.
everything.
In an effort to keep us on time.
That's- we
Yes,
have one more
thank you.
minute to add to
Maybe
number
we
5.
would leave it at 4.
We'll leave it at 4. We can talk about it
Yeah.
again next week. Will we have time on the agenda, Gary?
yeah.
Okay.
Odd numbers are
What-
always more interesting.
Put it so we can get some more opinions.
Yeah.
We don't have enough opinions.
Other people here, yeah. Before, we end the,
Meeting minutes.
Terry had brought up for the boards and committees. We do have a boards and committees website now off of the town's website. So there's, I don't know if you've seen that. It's, the finance committee section is on there, so it's a lot of bullet points that we may want to include. I mean, whether it's a pamphlet, a booklet, a handout, something,
Okay.
something like that. So it's pretty detailed. It's on the website.
So I have a question. What did we just agree to? We're going to have 4 points, and what are we going to do with them?
Well, we may have 5 when we have a,
We're
we're
going to
gonna have
talk
a-
about it at next week's agenda again,
Oh,
Brian.
okay, good.
Because I'd
Get
like
all
to
wrapped
wrap
up.
up a couple things. Does anybody have a quick
11, I'm not gonna-
liaison report?
No,
There you go, that was solved.
that was much easier.
Would someone like to make a motion
What about
to
minutes?
approve the minutes?
Yes, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second that.
March 13th?
Correct?
Yes, March 13th minutes.
Okay, Carrie made the motion and Brian seconded it. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn?
Oh, one, before we
Wait.
adjourn. So, next week, we will have, we'll include this again on the agenda.
Yes, please.
We'll
Thank you.
also include the warrant articles that have been finalized. We can start looking at those, maybe even approving some of them. And then I think we should also start maybe preliminarily talking about the report to town meeting.
The letter.
I know it's, the letter to town meeting. I know it's still early, but I think
It's never too
right,
early.
the earlier
Gary.
that we get, the earlier that we attack it, I think the less time we're crunching at the end, so.
Yes, I agree.
less pressure on our fine volunteer, I think.
Yeah, we're all volunteers. Gary,
You
do you
step up
have
there.
any details on the warrants that you could send me so I could at least start roughing out the?
Yes, yeah. I can send you the draft that we have now.
Okay, that's fine, 'cause
And,
I look forward to changing the numbers.
yeah, the finance, as I said, the finance articles are done. I wouldn't say that the budget is almost done, with a little bit, maybe a little bit more conversation with the schools. So, I'll send that to you tonight,
Perfect.
and that's all I have.
Okay, so I want to make a motion to adjourn.
John did.
Terry
wanna
made the
keep
motion. Someone
I
seconded
second
it?
the notion.
Thank you, Gary. Meeting adjourned. Thank you
okay.
all.
All right, thank you.